Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is D with MKD58 Media, and real quick, wanted to go ahead and kind of look at the poll results for this poll that I put up earlier today. Put it up about 12 hours ago, where I said which of these two WrestleMania matches was more memorable, and I'm talking about Bret versus Austin at WrestleMania 13 and The Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania 18. And a little over 1,000 people voted. And we got 68% say Bret versus Austin, 32% say Rock versus Hogan. And, I'm not really surprised by these results. I was kind of keeping tabs on the poll a little bit at during different periods of the day. So I kind of knew it was going to end up like this. And of course, you can still vote. If you haven't voted and you're watching this, go ahead and make yourself heard if you want to, and I'm going to leave the poll open for a little bit, but the results seem pretty steady. Bret versus Austin has been in the lead the whole day. But people have chimed in and said that they liked Rock versus Hogan, but I wanted to respond a little bit to some of the comments. Some of the comments I responded to within the comment section. Other ones I kind of figured maybe I could speak on them a little bit within a video. That way you could kind of cover more ground that way. But let's just check out some things here. This is the most recent comment from about 37 minutes ago. It says, I think this one comes down to the long-lasting ramifications of Bret versus Austin. It had a much wider effect on the era that it began. In my opinion, Bret versus Austin was the first match of the Attitude Era, whereas Rock Hogan was the end of the Attitude Era. Interesting. I never really thought about that in terms of Rock Hogan being the end of the Attitude Era. I'm not sure if I agree with that or not off the top of my head, because I'm trying to recount what year Rock Hogan took place in. I know it was WrestleMania 18, but I can't remember exactly when that was. I know I could do the math, but that's not about to happen right now. But I do think that's an interesting comment. I think this one comes down, and I do definitely agree that Bret versus Austin definitely had much more longer lasting ramifications. Like that one really, I said it in one of the comments, that was a perfect double turn, which is, theoretically very hard to pull off. It was a perfect double turn where you had somebody that was a face facing somebody that was a villain, a heel. And over the course of the match, they trade places and maintain those new roles for a lengthy period of time. Austin, of course, went on to be one of the most popular faces of all time. And then Bret in 1997 had one of the most impressive heel years. I think 97 Bret was a very, very underrated heel. Let's look at some more comments. We got Rock Hogan is the greatest match of all time. Hart Austin is a masterpiece, but the live reaction and the emotion involved makes Rock Hogan the all-timer. Now, when you say greatest match of all time, I will probably disagree with that, but I definitely agree that the live reaction and the emotion involved really made that match something special to behold, and is a big part of the reason why I put it in this poll in the first place. Because I know initially a lot of people might think, hey, Austin and Bret are going to wrestle circles around Rock and Hogan, just from a in-ring skill perspective. But it's not always about that. In fact, you could say in-ring skill might just only be 60% of what you need for a classic moment, because there's a whole lot else that goes into it. And Rock Hogan, they had a lot of that. It's undeniable the atmosphere that was going on in that match. And traditionally, I know these days ratings and I guess streaming numbers and all those things matter, but traditionally it was all about the audience, the crowd, the people that were in the arena set the tone for everything, right? And if that's the case, Rock Hogan That was an amazing crowd. So let's move on and read some more comments here. I probably might speed things up in the editing. I don't know how this video is going to turn out, you guys, but I wanted to kind of talk about some of the comments. I thought Bret Austin was more intense, and the match did more for both wrestlers' paths for the remainder of their time in WWE. Yep, I mean, I agree completely. Rock Hogan was a good match, and that stare down was a surreal moment, but it only really breathed life back into Hulkamania for a few months. The Rock was already Hollywood bound by that point. Yeah, that all true. All true. Can't disagree there. Here we go. More in favor of Rock Hogan. Rock versus Hogan was a bigger deal just on their star power alone. Stone Cold was still on the rise at the time, and Bret was never the star Hogan was. I guess that really can't be denied if you go by the numbers. You know, he said Bret wasn't the star. He didn't say Bret wasn't the wrestler. So, you know, calm down, everybody out there. But however, Bret versus Austin is one of the greatest matches work rate wise. So yeah, another, you know, I like these kind of measured, nuanced takes. You know, nothing too crazy yet. You know, Rock versus Hogan being a bigger deal in terms of star power alone, I'd agree for sure. That's the one thing that I got to remember too as well. Just because Stone Cold and Bret and Shawn and all those guys were important to me when I was a kid back then, you know, around, you know, WrestleMania 18 and of course all time in Hogan's case, The Rock and Hogan were bigger stars, like just outright stars. True enough. So let's look at these some more. This guy says people love voting against anything that has Hulk Hogan in it, I swear. And I did respond to that comment, so maybe I won't necessarily address it again, but maybe I will. But I thought it was kind of there might be some truth to that. I mean, Hogan's one of those, as popular as he is, he's also very polarizing, and there are people that you know don't like him. So I think this is the last comment right here. Easily Bret versus Austin, not even close. In terms of just straight up wrestling, like in ring stuff, I'd agree. But just as an experience, I think there's definitely competition. It's just as a moment, I do think it's close. And so let me say my final. I don't know if I've been reading other people's comments. I don't know if I've ever said my kind of final official, my opinion on this. And Rock versus Hogan is the most recent one of the matches that I've seen, of course, but I actually haven't watched Bret versus Austin at WrestleMania 13 in a long time. In fact, I might have only seen that match maybe twice in my entire life. But I watched it at a very impressionable time. I remember when that happened, where I was, you know, in my mom's basement watching that, and I was a youngin', and I remember that moment, Austin in the sharpshooter with the blood, you know, streaming down his face and whatnot. And that was a crazy moment, but it's actually kind of tough because Rock Hogan, that crowd reaction is something that really blew me away, particularly because I wasn't expecting that kind of reaction. You know, I wasn't expecting that at all, and they maintained it, the energy level. Another thing too is coming off of that earlier that night, Austin faced Scott Hall, and to me that was a kind of a dead crowd, considering it was Austin and Scott Hall wrestling each other. I thought the crowd was kind of dead for that match. That's just how I felt. So the contrast between the crowd energy for that match compared to the crowd energy for Rock versus Hogan, very drastic difference. So it made the crowd energy even bigger. You know what I mean? So it's really hard for me to deny that moment. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go with the crowd on this one, not because I follow the crowd, but because this is how I genuinely feel. But I agree. Bret versus Austin, for a number of reasons, I think this really shaped careers, like this Bret versus Austin match. Rock versus Hogan, like many of you have said, they were already well established. Hogan was already a legend. The Rock already, pretty much a legend at the very least. Cemented that he was going to become a legend if he wasn't already one at that point in time. Basically, already mega stars, both of them. Bret versus Austin. Bret was established, but still had many more chapters of his story to write because he hadn't been a heel yet, so he still had more places to go. And Austin was making his ascent, so Austin wasn't even anywhere close to his apex. So the Bret versus Austin match just shaped so much, and it also gave us a very iconic visual of Austin in the sharpshooter with the blood. I know the Rock Hogan stare down, that's a nice poster, but I actually think the Bret versus Austin match kind of said more, maybe. That's it though. This video's kind of ran kind of long. I just wanted to kind of react a little bit and let you guys kind of know that I was paying attention to the comments and all of these different things, and I do really appreciate you participating in the poll, everybody that participated. So that's it. I'm gonna cut the video short here. 68% say Bret versus Austin was a much more, or at least a more memorable match than Rock versus Hogan, and I guess I agree. So, but it is closer than I think some of you think. I do think it's kind of closer, but that's it. All right, thanks.